Welcome to my YouTube channel Sushant Reddy. Every week I present my life lessons in sales, human psychology, and wealth creation from an entrepreneur's perspective. In episode 22, I continue my discussion on drive and motivation. For this episode, I have drawn on the ideas presented by Daniel Pink, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and Daniel Kahneman. Last time I discussed about Professor Harlow's monkey experiment, where he found that monkeys solved a puzzle with no incentives, no penalty, no training, and no intervention. This experiment was puzzling because its findings defy our traditional understanding of motivation. Motivation practiced at schools and at work is largely driven by incentives. We call it Motivation 2.0, that works on if this, then that principle. If you get good grades, you get to choose a good university. If you finish a project, you get a bonus or a promotion. This framework for motivation does not intuitively explain the workings of entrepreneurs, artisans, sportspersons, and some seemingly eccentric people. Take the case of David Blaine. For a long time, I used to be a fan of David and watch all his stunts on a channel called AXN. David is a freak and he puts his body and mind under enormous torture. Standing on a 100-foot pole with a 22-inch diameter for 35 hours with no support or safety harness, holding his breath underwater for 17 minutes and being suspended in a box above Thames River for 44 days without food. These stunts, while extreme, always made me wonder, how does he do it? What motivates him to endure such extreme physical and mental torture? Last time we talked about Maslow's theory on motivation. Motivation 2.0 essentially works best to address scarcity needs. When a person feels a scarcity, you can motivate that person to do specific things in exchange for those unmet needs. We also said that there are growth needs for people, a need to improve one's self-worth or to realize the fullest potential and possibilities are growth needs. Intuitively, David's motivation cannot be to fulfill scarcity needs. He is going after growth needs. Daniel Pink calls this motivation driven by an intense desire to fulfill growth needs as motivation 3.0. Growth needs can be described by the MAP framework. MAP stands for mastery, autonomy, and purpose. A shift from the rewards mindset to a MAP mindset is what characterizes motivation 3.0. Let's look at each of these in greater detail. Humans have an inner desire to excel at something. If you're good at something, you'll automatically feel more positive and the world around you feels a lot more pleasant. In episode 3 on specific knowledge, I talked about the skill versus the challenge curve as explained by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi in his book Flow. When skill is way above challenge, we get bored with a given task. If skill is way below challenge, we tend to get anxious and quit. But if skill is just below challenge, we enter a state called flow. In this state, we incrementally improve our skills and take on bigger challenge at every point. I've always felt that there are two approaches to master something. The first approach is to face challenge and adjust your abilities to match that challenge. The second approach is to improve your skills and then seek a challenge. In the first approach, you first move vertically and then move horizontally. In the second approach, you first move horizontally and then move vertically. The first approach is what I call the trial and error approach or the practitioner approach. And the second one is a scholarly approach. In the world of entrepreneurship and life in general, I really believe that practitioner approach to things is much superior to scholarly approach. Understanding the problem and then building skill set is much superior to building a skill set and then trying to face a challenge. While both approaches might lead to mastery, the time taken to get there will be much shorter with a practitioner approach. Another interesting aspect of mastery is our psychological mindset while we are on the path to mastery. This is explained by the Dunning-Kruger effect. If we plot mastery versus knowledge, the blue line is how much we know as we improve our levels of mastery. The red line is what we actually think we know. The gap between the two is highest at early stages, where our overconfidence stems from our ignorance of the subject. Green line denotes our realization of how much we don't know. As our mastery levels improve, we tend to realize that there are a lot of things we still need to learn. The green line explains why the quest to achieve mastery is eternal, and that's why we say ability is always asymptotic to mastery. In our high school math, we have learned the concept of an asymptotic curve. A curve that comes close to a line but never actually intersects it is called asymptotic. Ability can go close to the state of mastery but never touch it. And this beautiful principle explains the fundamental difference between people driven by motivation 2.0 versus 3.0. Let's compare a young boy aged 15 who's a school champion in tennis with Rafael Nadal. Now, the young boy does not have money, university scholarship, recognition, fame, etc. So you can incentivize him with all these things, and hence motivation 2.0 levels are high. Nadal, on the other hand, has all the trophies, money, the fame, recognition, a loving family, and so on. So there's nothing left to incentivize Nadal when it comes to his scarcity needs. Nadal will have very little motivation 2.0. On the other hand, Nadal is totally driven by his desire to master clay and grass courts and become a legend in tennis. Even though Nadal is closer to attaining mastery, he is not yet there. In fact, he will never get there because ability is asymptotic to mastery. That gap between his ability and mastery is what drives motivation 3.0, and the irony is, as this gap closes, motivation 3.0, instead of decreasing, actually increases. So a guy driven by motivation 3.0 goes to greatness, while a guy largely driven by motivation 2.0 will see a depleting level of motivation as his needs get met. Unless depleting levels are replaced by motivation 3.0, at some point the difference between both will become so huge, and that becomes the difference between good versus great. I took a long time to understand this principle intuitively. If you truly understand this, you can access the real power of motivation 3.0. The next time I discuss the other two pillars of MAP, which is autonomy and purpose. Thanks for watching. For weekly videos, you can subscribe to my channel or to my newsletter on sushantreddy.com. Until next time, goodbye and stay safe.